rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Andor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force. And so much more. Yeah, we're here for Star Wars conversation. Chat up the wars. Got some great voicemails in lately. We were just talking a little bit off air. Don't know what happened, but all of a sudden you guys all woke up out there and left us some good voicemails. So we're going to get to a couple of those. Also coming up on the show, a couple pieces recently over in at Forbes, kind of looking behind the ears, you might say, over there at the House of Mouse at some of the economics and the way the budgets are being managed and balanced over there with respect to Star Wars films, Star Wars on television. So it's very interesting, and we're going to give you the high points. It can be very dry, it can be very boring, but we're going to make it very entertaining here, of course, on Rebel Force Radio. Tell you why you should know and why you should care. Also, Star Wars and pop culture and so much more coming up here this week on RFR. Grateful to be with you. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. If you're new to the program, and we know that the numbers show us it's growing by leaps and bounds each and every week, welcome. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Always great to get together with Jason each week to talk the wars. I was going to say Star Wars, but I stopped myself and went for the wars, you know.
Star Wars.
You say you say it the Chicago way, the wars. So that's how it goes. I've been reading the new Marvel comic, Star Wars, The Battle of Jakku, Insurgency Rising. And, we mentioned it a few weeks ago. And, Jason, you mentioned you wanted me to give you the lowdown on it.
I want to know.
So I'm going to give you the lowdown. Yeah, I got lowdown.
Okay. You got lowdown.
So what it's all about is immediately following the Battle of Andor and the destruction of the Death Star. What happens after that?
Yeah.
And like the old original Marvel comics from 1983 that continued the story beyond Return of the Jedi, it all starts while they're still on Andor. Leia's still wearing the dress the Ewoks made her. You know, she threw that back on, I guess, after the fight in the forest and everything. Because remember, she was wearing rebellion.
Yeah,
a rebellion uniform. I guess
she was wearing the poncho and the and all that. And then she and Han started getting all frisky there in the bushes with the Ewok. The Ewok wasn't participating. The Ewok was viewing this.
He just likes to watch. So yeah, leave it to Swank with the Ewoks again. What is this, like 4 weeks in a row now?
He was watching what was going on in those bushes. But yeah, so she gets back into her dress.
Yeah, she throws that back. It's comfortable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this goes beyond wearing something just out of utilitarian purposes. She's putting it on because she's making a fashion statement now. And plus, it's probably comfortable. So she, it's so great, though, because she walks out to Vader's funeral pyre and starts to, attempting to come to terms with all the information that got laid on her during the Return of the Jedi. Han Solo's not in the book, I got to say. But it's Han like yet. That. Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Where'd he go?
I don't know. They just haven't featured him in any panels or anything. It's all very strictly rebellion business here.
Okay.
And I think according to the new timeline, the new canon, Han does not continue his military career with the rebellion now the Republic, the New Republic. In the old expanded universe, he did.
Yeah.
He continued on. He had a military career beyond the original trilogy. Well, we don't know what fate has in store for Han Solo in this new canon. Oh, look, they even have him there on the cover.
Yeah, this is a cover of the first
see
one,
him.
Insurgency Rising, and then I think you held up. Was it the second issue?
No, there's
various covers. You can't really
but
tell.
See, I
see.
do have.
Okay, you've got that one. All right.
Yeah.
So it opens up with a trilogy, right? Is that what I'm? So it's 3 books.
4.
Oh, 4. Okay.
Yeah, it'll take us through November.
I see.
And it's just great because what it does is it continues the story that's been told in various different formats. And everything from a mobile game that you would play on your phone called Star Wars Uprising, that came out several years ago, to things like the novels, the Aftermath novels, the video games, Battlefront, and Battlefront 2 especially.
Uh-huh.
What makes it great is it brings all these characters and situations together in one story you can follow from beginning to middle to end.
And it's definitive. It's canonical and definitive at this point, most likely.
It is. It is. Unless years down the road, they make a live action movie. And if they did, I wouldn't be surprised if elements of these stories get included in whatever live action retelling of these stories they might have in mind. But it also connects to The Mandalorian because they bring up a lot of things that that are talked about in The Mandalorian, specifically that second to last episode from season 2 that featured Richard Brake, is that really intense Imperial officer, and Din Djarin,
Bill Burr,
and Bill Burr sneaking into that Imperial facility. They talk about some of Richard Brake's past and serving in things like Operation Cinder, which we see in this book, or at least it begins in this book.
Okay.
And also, there's some real great, character moments between Luke and Leia. Luke right away being very enthusiastic about training Leia in the ways of the Force. And Leia giving sort of I'm not so sure,
Oh.
She's really more concerned with working with Mon Mothma and fighting the Imperial remnants that are throughout the galaxy. And there's a few of them. One of them is a guy named Moff Adelhard, who comes from the Star Wars Uprising mobile phone game. And other characters from the Aftermath books. There's an Imperial officer named Ray Sloan, which for some reason there's a segment of fandom that has a real big you-know-what for this character. I don't get it. But they sure seem to think she's the bee's knees.
Okay.
And she appears in this, and other characters like Derek Yeager from the Resistance shows, the character that was voiced by Scott Lawrence.
Okay. All right, so this really is sort of a who's who of characters that exist in this timeline that have never been put all together in one story. So it sounds really ambitious. So when do they get to Jakku? So you're still on Andor at this point, or have you made it over to Jakku?
I think it's going to be a sprawling sort of thing. This is just the first part of it.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it would take the better part of the year at least, because I don't know. I personally don't know what the rollout is, but right now they're doing this chapter, which is called Insurgency Rising, and it's going to be 4 issues.
Okay.
And it's good. Also, you get to see some of Bib Fortuna sitting in the throne room.
Yeah, he's on the cover there of the second issue.
This story will help fill in some blanks.
He's a little skinnier than we see him in Book of Boba. He hasn't quite put the pounds on here.
That's 5 years later.
Yeah.
When we see him in Book of Boba. Here, he's fresh. He's fresh to the crime lord throne. And he hasn't indulged yet.
Right.
he hasn't dined with the Rancor yet, or whatever he does.
Or dined on a Rancor.
Oh, yeah, right. Deep fried. But it's good. I recommend it.
This is a good time to
I'm
jump
a comic
in?
book fan. And, yep. Oh, great time.
Yeah,
Because you
okay.
know the story. Now, there are some characters that are specific to the comic books, but it's not really a big deal. Like Poe Dameron's dad.
Right.
Zori Bliss's mom.
Uh-huh. Well,
It's interesting. It's
Poe
fun.
was Poe was conceived on Andor, right? After the big celebration, wasn't that? I think that's canon, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a good time. I'm liking what I'm reading here. Like I said, it's pulling in all of these different stories that have been told in various mediums, from video games to novels and everything else. And it's bringing it all together in one cool package. So I'm digging it.
I noticed that you had the floppy there in your hand. So you're are you taking a break from the digital? Or are you just, when it comes to the Star Wars books, you buy the floppies?
Well, I collect the covers that have the
action figures on there. That's
action
right.
figure. Yeah, it's like the action figure artwork. I collect those.
That's super
And,
cool. Luke Skywalker,
this
Rebel
just happened to
Commander.
have it on the other side was there. So
All right.
I mean, it's the cover, but it's not the actual book itself. I was just using it as a visual aid.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, I got you. All right.
Yeah, but I'm into the digital comics because I like being able to read in bed and not disturb Wendy with the light on reading the comic books, because that used to be a thing back in the day,
Oh, under the covers with the flashlight.
Yeah, and my eyesight's great actually, but it's been through some ups and downs over the years, and I've discovered, with these digital comics, you could really zoom in on the artwork, and I like doing that. I like being able to zoom in on it. But you see, like here's some panels here, and this features Luke Skywalker. He has an encounter with these guys called the Acolytes of the Beyond. And they were featured in the Aftermath book.
Well, they really love that word acolyte there at Lucasfilm.
Yeah, they sure do. They sure do. But look at one of the acolytes. Does she look familiar?
Hey, I noticed that red hair anywhere. Are we looking at the return of Mara Jade? Canonical Mara Jade?
No, she doesn't get identified in these panels, but one of these acolytes is a very intense redhead female.
Yeah.
About Luke's age.
Oh. And it looks like sparks are flying. Oh, those are actual sparks, not love sparks.
Yeah. Well, they're actually battling. And the whole gist of it is this guy Moff Adelhard is he understands the Emperor and Vader are dead. The Death Star has been destroyed, but he's putting propaganda out there saying that's all fake news. Those guys are alive and well, and
nothing to see here, folks.
Right. So still trying to instill fear in the citizens of the galaxy, while basically it's a big charade. It's not happening, but whatever he can do to maintain the health of the Empire, this guy's going to do it. And on top of it, there are other Imperials out there sort of thinking the same thing, but they're not working together. So there may be, prior to the Battle of Jakku, there may be an Imperial civil war that happens. That should be pretty interesting. But that's just speculation. I'm not 100% sure.
All right, you sold me. You sold me.
That's good, man.
You sold me. I got to read this. I got to fire up the app. I still have the app, so
well, that's good.
You need to make sure my subscription is up to date, and I'm going to check this out. I really am, because I think that for me it was like I wanted to make sure that I was coming in at a time where everyone was sort of on the same page, I guess. And I feel like this is probably as good a time as any to sort of dive in. Plus, it really is one of my all-time favorite eras of Star Wars. Jedi Luke, the formation, the early days of the New Republic, and I'm hoping that there are real heroes to root for here, and it's not a story about how everybody's flawed and everything's corrupt, and so I'm hopeful.
Right.
I'm hopeful.
So far, so good out of the gates. And yeah, I'm looking forward to more issues of this and getting some good Star Wars storytelling because there's not much on the horizon for 2025, folks. Let's face it. We're going to have 12 weeks of Andor. This we know. But any new Star Wars stuff coming out outside of Andor? Maybe Lucasfilm has an animated series up its sleeve that they might want to drop on us like during the summertime months or like late summer into the fall because there is that convention out in Japan next April. So I think they're sitting on some announcements for that big whoop-de-doo. So, and you'll get to hear them twice. You'll get to hear them in English and in Japanese. I hope everybody knows what they're in store for with these panels out there.
I did see...
English-speaking folk will be speaking very slowly, and then there'll be full-on Japanese interpretations going on in between questions and answers. When I was out there, we saw Mark Hamill, and Mark would tell a joke, and me and a couple of the other guys I was with, we would be the only ones laughing because everyone in the audience spoke Japanese. We were the only ones who could understand the English.
Oh, man.
Also, there was an earthquake that hit. There was an earthquake that hit while we were out there, too. And me and my crew, we were panicking, of course, and everybody else was just sitting in that convention hall as cool as a cucumber, you know.
Look at these,
no big deal,
Midwest USA guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But you talk about 2024. I mean, 2024, we got the Acolyte. We got we're going to have Skeleton Crew. We got Bad Batch Season 3. We got that Tales of the Empire series. We got
great. Yeah, that was.
We got Star Wars Outlaws. I mean, a bunch of stuff in the EU, but I mean that's just counting, you know, the television. That was a lot for 2024, and as you mentioned, 2025 is looking like 12 weeks of Andor, and that's it. Yeah. And then all eyes are going to be set to the big screen in May of 2026 for that Mandalorian and Grogu film.
I still predict an animated series will drop, and not a full season of shorts. Like the Tales of shows, but there might be
they're going to commit to an animated series season. Yeah, full season.
I think they got something cooking right now. I just don't know what it is.
Boy, you know, it'd be fun if they did something to tie into this Marvel arc, where they did something that could be connected to this post Jedi era. Be smart, especially when you're positioning Mandalorian and Grogu up on the big screen. Get something to tie into that as well. Yeah,
because I think we're going to start seeing the foundations of several things that occur in the Mandalorian era, and the least of which could be Giancarlo's character, Moff Gideon. He may show up in these stories, and I think that would be great. How about... Yeah, wouldn't that be fun to see?
He said he was actually at a Dragon Con a few weeks ago, and they asked him about coming back. And he said that despite the fact that they've got this movie coming out, he says that he has a feeling that there is plenty more to come. And he says, well, Disney's going to figure out how to get all of these characters into one really great movie. So he's talking about what's rumored to be this Falloni Avenger-style team-up film. But he says Disney will figure out how to join all these characters into a really great movie or TV show. That's my sense of where it will go. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have a new vision, continuing with the Mandalorian movie. My sense is that it's all going to converge at one point or another, and we're going to have another set or trilogy of more films. So this is, you know, Giancarlo, when you ask him a question at one of these conventions, he goes. And he's not too concerned. But he also said that there was a moment on set when they were filming that last episode where Filoni and Favreau kind of started talking together. He said that there was... He said he felt a strong connection to Moff Gideon. He knew how to read between the lines in the script. During one critical moment of production at the end of season 3, Giancarlo halted everything happening on the set to talk with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau about a line. He said, by the end of 45 minutes, you go over to start talking to Favreau and Filoni. 45 minutes later, you're still talking. That's why these budgets are crazy, probably, because all that chit chat. Everybody's overtime. Yeah. So he says, by 45 minutes, we start talking about a sequel for Moff Gideon. Filoni says, wouldn't it be a great idea if we had Moff Gideon leave and then come back and be somebody else? Favreau said, no, he's Moff Gideon. It's going to be great, and we'll think about a sequel. That's according to Esposito, who asked if he wanted to see Moff Gideon continue. Of course, he said, yes, I want to live. I'm a effing clone. Make it true. That was
right.
Always bring in the enthusiasm, but so he thinks that there's a future, and they were ambiguous enough with that ending. And yes, he was flanked by clones. We don't know if that was the OG Moff Gideon.
Right.
So.
Right. I hope they pull a twist like that. It would be so Star Wars. But it's a clone loophole they have, and they can exploit that should they desire to, because they had the foresight to put those cloning tanks in several episodes of The Mandalorian. So, bada bing, give us more Giancarlo.
Yeah.
There was something that I saw today that I thought was pretty interesting, and that is Mads Mikkelsen is going to be making the trek out to Star Wars Celebration Japan. And,
yes, indeed.
That's quite the schlep. So I think that maybe there might be marketing reasoning behind this. Perhaps the inclusion of Mads in Andor Season 2. That could be a reality. I wouldn't be surprised at all. He and his brothers seem like they have a good thing going.
They're
with
like
Lucasfilm.
they're like the Kelsey brothers of Star Wars, Mads and Lars. They go together, and except one of them's not dating a pop superstar, but maybe they can work on that. But yeah, the two brothers for sure leaving a big mark on Star Wars. To me that makes total sense. To not see Galen Erso in season 2 of Andor, particularly in those final episodes when they're just going right up to the film. And I suspect that they're going to go as close to Rogue One as Rogue One went right up the rear end of New Hope.
Yeah, we might see Jyn Erso getting arrested because she is in Imperial custody at the beginning of the film.
Yes.
We may see that. We definitely know that Forrest Whitaker will be back in season 2. Mm-hmm. And I think we'll see the ultimate fate of everyone's favorites, Galen, who's the crazy red guy?
Yes, Skarsgård's character.
Skarsgård,
Luthen.
Luthen Rail.
Yeah.
Luthen Rail. Yeah, see, we need Andor back because these names are slipping. They're slipping out of my brains.
It's been 3 years. I mean, thank God for Rebel Force Radio, because we've been reinforcing this stuff and talking about it, every week. So in a way, when you do a weekly podcast about this stuff, on the one hand, 3 years seems like a long time. And on the other hand, it just seems like, wow, didn't we just talk about this? So it's helpful. Right. That's why listening to RFR is a great way to pass the time in between Star Wars streaming seasons.
Characters don't become real to me unless I have a 3 3/4 inch action figure of them. And there is not one produced for Galen Erso yet. Or not Galen Erso, I did it again.
Yeah.
Luthen Rail.
Right.
There's just not, and there's not a Galen Erso either. Let's face it. So
there's not a Galen 3 3/4? No, they both are in Black Series. And here's what I don't get is they've been able to kind of kill two birds with one stone in the tooling and the sculpting that they use. I shouldn't say the tooling, the sculpting that they use for the Black Series, the 6-inch figures. They're able to scale down, and they cut some of the time and the labor that's involved in making those 3 3/4 inch figures, because they've done a lot of that R&D with the 6-inch line. So that's what. Now the construction is a little bit different, but again, a lot of the 3D modeling and all of that is very transferable. If you look, there's there's a lot of similarities with the Black Series figures in the 3 3/4 inch.
I'm dealing with a personal crisis right now. I'm sorry. I've just discovered that there was a Galen Erso 3 3/4 inch action figure released in 2017.
You probably have
there
it.
it is.
Just go around the corner and you'll probably see him sitting there somewhere.
I don't think I have this figure. All I'm seeing is a gaping hole in my action figure collection right now. And I'm very unnerved by this.
Well, he's going for
Very
$46 on eBay right now. I'm seeing anywhere between $40, $50 for this one. Uh-oh. Here's 20. Buy it now. You better get on that.
Okay.
It's going up and up.
Send me the link. Send me the link.
Yeah, this was part of the actual Rogue One line. So he's on a Rogue One card back. I have all of those in a box somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to take a closer inspection of the old collection. He might be in there somewhere. He's kind of a boring character, let's face it,
Very.
When it comes to action figure, it's not, anyone's favorite.
Yeah, I think they had to, what'd they put him with? They had to give him something. Oh, they gave him a little mouse droid. Just to make him a little bit more toyetic.
Yeah. If they release that figure now, it would be considered a deluxe figure and would cost $10 more.
It sure would.
Than every
how do you
other
like
one.
this? He's got like a little rappelling. He's got like a little grappling hook, so he can sort of rappel around. Zip line.
Yeah.
Zip line action.
That's the tool of all scientists. Some zip line action. But yeah, there he is, and I guess that's an Imperial scientist kind of a tunic he's wearing.
Mm-hmm. Kind of leaves a little to be desired in the face sculpt, I got to say.
Right. He looks like that creepy guy sitting in the back row of the bus when you're going to work every day, and he just sits there and stares out the window the whole time.
Wears the same clothes every day.
Yeah. Stained clothing. But okay, so we'll get on that. We'll get on this Galen Erso thing. So I'm shocked. I'm shocked by this recent development, and
well, I mean,
I'm letting myself down, I guess.
When you have thousands of these things, I mean, I got to remember it all. Can't remember it all.
I don't know. For years I relied on my sons, and they would tell me. I would say, "Do we have this? Yeah, we have that.
Do we have
so
this?
I think there is hope. There is hope.
Yeah.
That Galen is within the collection itself. So keep your fingers crossed. I'll be here next week to update everyone on the status of Galen Erso 3 3/4 inch action figure in my collection.
All right, let's check out some listener mail.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Rebel Force Radio, it's Josh from Buffalo. I'm in my car. I know I'm not expecting this to be played or anything. I just want to quickly say something I missed from you guys that you haven't done in a while are the commentary tracks of movies and TV shows. You did them for the sequels. You did them for Solo and Rogue One. They were so much fun to watch, especially having Jimmy's brother there. So fun to listen to and watch with the movie. I love it so much. You did it for Mando, and when you're just sitting around, you got maybe something to do. You have to do with your hands, like maybe working, and just having that on in the background to the right. Like, oh, it's so great. It's amazing. And I miss those. I was hoping maybe to just suggest that, or let you guys know that as a viewer, I missed that. And I don't know if you're interested in doing it again, but I'm sure a lot of other people love it. I love it. I know it takes a lot out of you kind of just sitting there for a couple hours talking about it, but
it's exhausting.
It can replace an episode for the week, whatever you want to do with it. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if you want to do it for, probably not the Acolyte, probably not.
Oh, no, that'd be fun.
Or Boba, but something, one of those maybe even. I don't know what would be the best thing to do. I mean, that's really what the newest things are. Maybe Kenobi. I don't know. I really don't know. I just love them so much. I love hearing those and would love to hear it again. So that's all I got to say. Love you guys. Yeah. See you later.
All right. Hey, thanks for the suggestion. They're a lot of fun to do. They really are. But, you know, we just got caught up in the fact that there was just so much new stuff that, you know, it was really, since Mando season 2, I think, was the last ones that we did. And it's just been a whirlwind since then of keeping up with all the news. But as we were just talking about, 2025 looks like maybe there's a window. So if you'd like to see more RFR commentaries, show at rebelforceradio.com. Let us know. Let us know if it's something you'd like and what you would like us to tackle. I think Kenobi is a really good suggestion. Acolyte, you know, could be interesting, could be fun. But it's so fresh, it's so new. I like to do these after a little bit of time has gone by, where we've had, you know, time to sort of digest it all. And I think Kenobi seems to be making a lot of sense in my mind. But glad you enjoy them, and glad that they're, you know, sort of that comforting background stuff that we all need, you know, like you said, Jim, when you're doing something with your hands, because we paint the picture in these. You don't even have to be watching the actual thing. You just have to listen to us talk about it.
Yeah, and if you saw it once, it's largely burned into your mind for the most part. Mm-hmm. But it is the most fun way to do it, is to watch it in tandem with the visual.
Yeah.
I could see us doing Obi-Wan Kenobi. We'll take this request seriously, and maybe get around to doing Obi-Wan Kenobi commentary, like you said, Jason. And we got 12 weeks of Andor next year, and then
right.
Then everything's wide open. So, yeah, you could see us revisiting some of the Star Wars streaming series that has come out in the last few years.
All right, let's do another one here. Let's see what's on their mind.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Jason. I'm calling because I wanted your opinion on this. So I was enlightened with a few beers and an episode of the Mortis arc. I believe it was season 3, episode 16. And when the brother and Anakin have a dialogue, Anakin says, "I'll never join the dark side willingly," and he also says, "I'll never be a Sith," and the brother reacts and says, "Then you will destroy the Sith and the Jedi." So that, you know, that hit me in my head, and I was thinking, so what if the prophecy of the Chosen One wasn't to, you know, bring balance to the Force, but to bring balance to the Force? Like, destroying the Jedi and the Sith and bringing balance to both sides of the Force, where there's no Sith and no Jedi. Because, as we know, the Jedi got destroyed, and then at the end of Return of the Jedi, the Sith was destroyed. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts and everything about it. You know, hopefully you guys show it on your show. That would be awesome. Love you guys. Thank you for everything you guys do with your show. Appreciate it. Bye.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the voicemail and the question. Mortis, the brother. Boy, you know, Mortis is a tough one because it can go so many different ways. There's nothing really, I think, truly definitive. It's a lot of allegory, and it's an, you know, kind of a big analogy for the Force in general, with the son as the representation, manifestation of the dark side, and the daughter, the light, and the father that balances the two. But one thing I think we know for sure is that balance of the Force, the balance of the Force, is the eradication of the dark side. It's not about having one light side user, one dark side user, and therefore there's balance. I don't think that's what George meant. I think it was always about the elimination, easy for me to say, the elimination of the dark side. So, yeah, I don't see how the brother really plays into it other than just being the embodiment of the dark side in this analogy of how the Force is balanced. Now, it does sort of, this is where it gets a little squishy, because if the Mortis family there is representative of the ideal, the balance, what do you have? You have a dark sider, you have a light sider, and then you have the person that is balancing the two. So I can see where it's somewhat confusing. But in my book, balance of the Force means all dark side is eliminated and eradicated.
Well, something to keep in mind at all times is balance of the Force isn't some sort of scientific thing. It's a Jedi thing. It's strictly a Jedi thing. The Sith don't care about a balance to the Force, none of that business. It's not a reality for every Force user. It's a reality for every Jedi, the balance of the Force. And why is that the case? It's because the rise of the dark side has tipped the Force out of balance, making it difficult for the Jedi to use it. So naturally, they're looking to eradicate the dark side, the Sith specifically, and bring balance back to the Force so the Force can be at its peak power for a Jedi, for a light side user. Dark side users don't care about something like balance of the Force. It's totally Jedi doctrine. And that's all it is. That's why I thought it was really silly in the episode of Star Wars Rebels called Lost Sons, or is it called Lost Twin Sons? Twin Sons, which features the final showdown in Death of Darth Maul, the final showdown between Maul and Kenobi. And as Maul is lying there after the lamest lightsaber duel of all time, if you remember correctly, there was nothing to it. It's just like they ran at each other and then Maul was dead. Oh, it's so samurai. Shut up. Give me a lightsaber duel. I don't care about samurai.
Master.
I don't care about samurai. Give me a lightsaber duel. So he's lying in Kenobi's arms, dying, and his final words are, is he the chosen one? Why would Darth Maul care about a chosen one? Again, that's all part of the Jedi doctrine. They thought the chosen one would bring balance to the Force. Now, when you have the son telling Anakin he's going to destroy the Jedi and the Sith, I think you can look at it as pure prophecy. The son knows what the fate of Anakin Skywalker is going to be. The son already knows this because Mortis exists in a sphere outside of time and everything, and space, everything. It has no connection to the real world. So they're kind of omnipresent, it almost feels like, because they're the physical embodiment of the light side, the dark side, and the balance itself. That's the allegory. And that's all it is. I don't think anything that happens on Mortis should be looked at as absolute or as even actually really happening. I think you can largely look at the Mortis experience as a Force vision, pure and simple. There is no Mortis you go to. You go there in your mind, I firmly believe. But that's all open to debate. And I don't think that looking for an absolute answer in this is going to lead you anywhere but a very frustrated place, because it's not happening in connection with actual physical reality. It's a Force vision.
The only question, I agree with most of what you said. The one thing that is curious to me is, see, I believe that some of Palpatine's interest in Anakin Skywalker is the fact that he is prophesied as the one that will bring balance to the Force. If he can take him off the board, then, so it may not be, I think if you asked old Palps, it was sort of like he's just covering his bases, right? Like, there's a lot of reasons to want to turn Anakin Skywalker. He's insanely powerful. That's the number one reason. But just in case this Jedi mumbo jumbo is true, I've taken care of both things. I got a extraordinarily powerful apprentice, who is prophesied, and if you believe in all that, and if it is true, he's out of play. So you're not going to get your balance of the Force because he works for me now. So there's your balance.
Also, but keep in mind, Palpatine also had a bit of faith in the idea that Darth Plagueis created Anakin, or the Emperor created Anakin. You know, it's like somewhere in that fuzzy area.
Yeah, right.
The experiments that were going on, the Sith experiments that Plagueis was undertaking and Sidious together, may have created a reaction with the midichlorians where the Chosen One was created.
Yeah.
And I think Palpatine believes that to a degree. At least he sort of insinuates that during the Opera House chat they have. So,
and it is
there's a bunch
sort
of things I think
confirmed
motivating Palpatine.
The possibility of it is confirmed in the Acolyte to some degree, confirming that you can manipulate midichlorians to create life, which is
right with the witches.
With the witches.
So, and the power of one, the power of two, the power of many, many. Jazz hands. The power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
See, and they said a Star Wars musical is impossible. I say you haven't watched The Acolyte yet. Okay.
Get to work on it, Bobby Lopez.
Yeah, would you
Get
please?
to work.
All right. Well, one thing you can be sure of is that there's always more Rebel Force Radio over on Patreon. So just get your butt over to rebelforceradio.com. And you'll see right there the Patreon button on the right rail. You just tap on that and boom, you're over there on Patreon. What's new there, Jim?
A lot is new this week. We have a double feature happening. 2 Q&As this week. And they're like on opposite ends of the spectrum. The first one is very exciting. It really has the RFR Patreon community a buzz, because we have dedicated an entire episode of the RFR Q&A to Blake's Take with Kid Blake. Kid Blake sits in the hot seat for the entire episode. We get to know him, and we get to know what fuels him as a kid growing up as a Star Wars fan in the 21st century. It's really, really eye-opening and excellent. Blake does a great job hanging in there with me for 90 minutes. We even talked to Blake's dad. So, Kid Blake on the RFR Q&A.
That's awesome.
And people are loving it. They are loving it. And he's such an impressive young man, really. You just get a taste when he calls in during the after shows, or when he has trivia showdowns with the potty mouth prophet, F.J. DeSanto. But to get some one-on-one time with him for a complete episode of RFR Q&A was really just a blast for me. And I had a great time talking to Blake. So that episode is available to all supporters of RFR on Patreon. Only $1 and you're listening. And
you know what's going to happen now, right? You know what's going to happen is FJ is going to demand his own Q&A. He's going to demand equal time with Blake.
I didn't think of that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But the full show video of my conversation with Blake is also available to RFR All Access supporters. And it's just great. I talked to, like I said, I brought his dad in on it, and I was really excited to talk to Blake's dad and give him props for raising a quality Star Wars son. What I found interesting, though, is something his dad said was, yeah, his dad was a Star Wars fan. And he did turn Blake on to Star Wars, as all good Star Wars dads do. But what he didn't expect was for Blake to go absolutely crazy for Star Wars, even outpacing his dad's own passion for Star Wars.
Oh, he created a Star Wars monster.
So, we pass the baton forward to the next generation, and then sometimes the next generation surprises us when they become more hardcore for it than we are. And so hearing Blake's take on RFR Q&A 221 was really refreshing and a real boost to my confidence in the future of the next generation supporting Star Wars. So great job, Blake. I love talking to him. On the other end of the spectrum, like I said, we have two vastly different Q&As going on this week. We go from growing up a Star Wars fan in the 21st century to growing old as a Star Wars fan in the 21st century, as RFR VIP David Hammond joins me on the Q&A. And he's original trilogy, original generation Star Wars fan, just like me. And we talk about a lot of memories from the original era of Star Wars, including the first time we saw the films, finding our first ever Star Wars action figures, having crushes on Carrie Fisher as little kids, and the original trilogy soundtracks. Even Hardware Wars gets a shout out on this one. Wow. So, we're coming at you hardcore from 1977 with the episode RFR Q&A number 222 being original generation Star Wars fans. So you get to hear from the future and the past this week on RFR Q&A. And we're always dropping a lot of great surprises for the RFR Patreon audience. As you guys know, you hear me talking about it every week. You get bonus podcasts, ad-free early bird releases, full show video, and so much more. So support RFR on Patreon and get shows like RFR Q&A, RFR RPG, the Babu Freaks, and all the other fun stuff I talked about, plus access to the RFR fan community, which is the best. The best Star Wars fan community on the internet can be found at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. So join us there. Be a part of the fun, and support Rebel Force Radio. Guarantee our health going into the future, and make sure that you're supporting your favorite Star Wars podcast. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
Rebel Force Radio.
Ugh, is that how far apart my eyes are? I look like Admiral Akbar.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news.
Come closer, I have good news.
Well, I don't know if it might be good news if you're an accountant over at Walt Disney, but we got a couple of stories here. Forbes has really been, tell you what, I got to give them credit because they've been covering Star Wars very thoroughly. The fallout from the Acolyte, they've been looking at sort of both sides of the Acolyte debacle, or schism, I could say, in fandom. A debacle, certainly, I think, from a PR standpoint and from a rating standpoint, it looks like. But look, if you loved it, you loved it. I mean, we certainly enjoyed our time on the after shows talking about it every single week. So you can go and check those out. Those will be there forever, whether the Acolyte is or not. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, so the first story up is the Star Wars streaming show with a higher budget than the films. This is really, it's very timely because we were talking about Andor. But Jim, as it turns out, when you look at Andor, after all is said and done, even just going back to November of 2022, this is while they were filming Andor season 2. All in all, they were all in on the Andor project for $352 million. $352 million, a third of $1 billion. And that is more than the cost of Rogue One. So the movie that inspired the series doesn't even, it's cost far less.
More than Rogue One, but just slightly less than Solo, a Star Wars story, which clocked in at $364.5 million. These are incredible numbers to be hearing going into single productions. Remember, George Lucas always wanted to keep the production costs way down. I mean, he was funding it naturally. He had a vested interest in it. Apparently, Disney just like we thought, they have money to burn. And George would always, demand the most out of his crew to realize his vision because he had faith and confidence in them, probably more than technology itself. He had the faith and confidence in them that they would develop the technology to be able to see his vision with a lower ceiling of a budget, way lower than some of these numbers we're hearing for these films. And what did George do to use technology to create lower budgets was the use of virtual sets, which we know some Lucasfilm productions do use, but we know Andor did not use the volume.
Right.
George was incorporating green screen technology back in the day when he was making the Kenobi films. Last week we talked about Ewan McGregor acting amongst a green screen and how he was a little frustrated with the whole process. But it helped George realize his vision. Actors be damned.
Right.
George was interested in the overall vision to match his creativity on a budget. And Disney, on the other side of the coin, favors a lot of times, especially in the case of Andor, practical effects, real world sets, and giant crews.
Yeah.
And I just remember when we were anticipating The Force Awakens and how there was talk from the creatives and from fans, this desire to have practical effects. It's got to be practical effects, like the original trilogy. It's got to be real and stuff. But that jacks up the cost of these productions in a massive way. George was interested in developing the technology, A, to fulfill his creative visions. So he would see on screen what he saw in his head, and B, to keep the cost down. He was more fueled by his creative visions and the confidence he had in his crew. Disney, on the other hand, thinks the best way to make Star Wars is just throw as much money as you can at it. And sometimes I think the creativity becomes less of a priority as far as what goes into the story. It's more about how much they can jam into, how much money they can throw at this thing with all their starts, stops, restarts, stops. Door falls on Harrison Ford's leg. Stop. All of these things come into play.
You remember when we were waiting for Galaxy's Edge to open, and I believe it was Bob Iger that made the comment. He said, we don't need to advertise this. We don't need to market this. All I need to do is step out in front of in front of the park and just whisper, "It's open." Okay.
Yeah.
That kind of gives you a sense of how Bob Iger felt about Star Wars fans. They're going to lap it up no matter what it is, no matter how we set the table, they're going to love it because it's Star Wars. That also could have seeped into what you were just saying, Jim, which is not putting story first and putting all these other things because, hey, as long as we give them some lightsabers and, explosions, right? All of that, they're going to be happy. We throw the Star Wars logo on it. They're going to be thrilled. But at first, they succeeded. They succeeded beautifully with Mandalorian. And it was just after that, it just seemed like it went on a steady progression downhill all the way to the Acolyte. They never really achieved anything, I don't think, close to the success of Mandalorian season 1. Now, from a critical standpoint, audience favorability, Andor is up there. Andor is up there with Mandalorian season 1.
Right.
But not from viewership. Views were way down. I was surprised in this piece how they tracked the Kenobi, how Kenobi plummeted. The viewing hours on the Kenobi series relative to when it started and then where it ended up was brutal. So you see people giving up on these shows. That's what's really heartbreaking. They're not even waiting around, for the finale, or if they do catch the finale, it's long after they stopped tracking it and they go, "Oh yeah, I forgot. I never finished that." That doesn't show any passion, excitement, any sense of urgency on behalf of the viewers. So that's very alarming in these numbers, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a fan engagement, excitement standpoint. It's on a sled straight down.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, too, that then the studio and other critics and know-it-alls will point the finger at the fan base and say, "Oh, this is the most toxic fan base in all of fandom anywhere." And it's like, well, wait, slow down. Or like, we have to stop catering to the 50-year-old fan because they're going to die. It's like, all right, wait, slow down. Slow down. The hardcore fans are the ones who are tuning in every week and watching this stuff. It's the casuals that you're failing to grab. And you need them to create a huge success. You can't just, live or die on the fan base. We're not your ride or die. It needs to go way beyond the hardcore fan. We'll be here watching no matter what you put out. So you should be patting us on the back instead of attacking fandom.
I am that guy that Iger was talking about that was going to show up no matter what. I am that guy, but I don't get any appreciation.
I went to Galaxy's Edge in the months immediately following the opening. I went to Disney, Anaheim, and the park was wide open, it felt like. I think there was a lot of hubris that bit Mr. Iger on the butt after making that statement, which I do also recall, saying, "Oh, we don't have to market this. We just say it's open and people will flood the parks." That didn't happen. Actually, the opposite happened for some reason. And I can't remember what the excuses were back in the day. But I was there summer 2019. Well, I think Galaxy's Edge opened in April that year. Yeah. And I was out there by June. And there was a lot of elbow room in that park. I thought it was great. But still, it didn't live up to what Bob Iger thought was going to happen. Since then, I'm sure there's been massive rebounds, and it's like a roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down. And the parks, I know, make a ton of cash. But it wasn't this massive smash upon opening Galaxy's Edge.
No.
It wasn't.
No.
But to me, as a hardcore fan, I couldn't get enough of it. So, we're the ones really keeping this whole show afloat. But even the hardcore fans, you can't take them all for granted. Because if they fail to get what their standards require as fans, then you're going to lose them. And if the hardcore fan base for Star Wars starts eroding, we're all screwed. Because it'll just go away.
Right.
I don't want that.
All you're going to be left with is Blake.
Kid Blake, and he's going to be so bummed.
And lonely. Where'd everybody go?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
But it's...
you're painting a bleak picture here, Swankin.
I know.
But, it's the reality of there's a lot of competition out there pulling on people's attention, and attention spans are short nowadays. And I think Hollywood in general is having a hard time with that.
Yeah, and Acolyte, this article reveals that the $230 million that was often touted as the price tag, that was only that number was only through halfway through post-production. So it's a lot more than $230 million. And I don't think we'll ever know because Disney doesn't really. So what seems to be happening is that they kind of put all of their streaming series production costs into one bucket on the ledger. They don't itemize it out. So there's ways that institutions like Forbes can kind of go in there and figure things out, and they have sources and all of that. But it's far beyond my pay grade. But
Well, a lot of it comes down to also is these filings that they have to submit for filming in the UK. And that stuff all becomes public knowledge because these crews are receiving the studios, I should say, are receiving massive kickback for simply bringing their productions to the UK.
Right. The old tax incentive.
Helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's huge tax incentive there. So they make a lot of money back. But in the meantime, they also have to have a certain percentage of the crew being from the UK and stuff like that. There's a lot of boxes they have to tick to be able to get the maximum tax kickback. And they do. They tick off all those boxes. There's some other interesting statistics about Andor as well. It's reported that the crew, the overall size of the cast and crew, was 3,782 people. I mean, massive crew.
That feels like a padded number. I think they're counting everybody that stepped anywhere near that set. Oh, you're on the crew. Here, carry this. Here, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but that is a large workforce. It's huge.
So that's why Andor's costs were so high. But also, when you compare it to things like the Solo film or the Rogue One film, those movies are, 2 hours, maybe a little over 2 to 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And Andor was 547 minutes. So, that's huge compared to the 133 minutes for Rogue One and the 135 minutes for Solo. So your price per minute of content being produced is a little bit more of a better percentage when you break it down that way.
Yeah.
But that's a massive cost. That is just and that's season 1. That's not even counting season 2.
Right.
And it's hard to really gauge whether or not Disney made a wise investment because the numbers of the Nielsen numbers, I guess, come out, and we can look at those as the most definitive statements on how many eyeballs go on these programs. And
streaming
Andor
minutes
wasn't exactly.
Yeah, it seems to be the how they measure these things is the number of streaming minutes, and then they extrapolate, from there how many people, average people in a household, how many average people sit down and watch the show. And it's kind of like when you would look at if anyone ever bought advertising in a newspaper or a magazine, they kind of assume that the magazine gets tossed around from by say a dozen people in its lifetime. So they're going to count maybe up to I forget how many impressions that would be. So they kind of have the same, I feel like the same kind of logic when it comes to the streaming series. They don't know how many people are in the household necessarily.
Right. So if you're going to use a per minute barometer, then you can break it down this way according to Forbes. Andor costs around $500,000 per minute compared to $2 million per minute for Rogue One and $2.2 million for Solo. So that kind of helps you see
that puts it in perspective. That puts it in perspective.
And also Forbes revealed via these filings that were submitted, the cost of Andor was within the budget, whereas Solo and Rogue One were not. Obviously, with the amount of reshoots both projects had, they were way over budget. So, and they say Andor season 2 is following in season 1's footsteps, so they're keeping it within the budget.
Well, they got a total pro there with Gilroy, so he's gonna make sure the plane lands
well
on time.
Thought out. He's got a great blueprint for a story and the knowledge of how to execute it to its utmost potential.
Yeah.
So that's some interesting money news coming regarding Andor, and I think it's timely because a lot of people assume the Acolyte was the most expensive Star Wars streaming show. And at $230 million, yeah, that was really expensive, but nowhere near the cost of Andor. Nowhere near the cost. $351.8 million.
But again, if you break it down, cost per minute.
Per minute, there you go.
Then it makes sense.
Acolyte was only,
I forget how many.
was only 8 episodes, like 400 minutes maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think. At most. Because each episode, I mean, some of those episodes were barely 30 minutes long, I feel like.
Yeah. Within the 30 to 40 minute range.
Yeah.
Which we've taled about that before.
But with Acolyte, a lot of these Disney Plus shows, you got to shave off like 5-6 minutes for the credits. The credits are ridiculously long because they've got all of the different credits for the creating the different countries, the soundtracks for the different the dubbing and all that. You got to sit through all of those if you
and the previously on stuff that gets you caught up,
right?
That takes up a few minutes as well.
The helmets all glowing,
the stupid helmet intro. Oh man, that's so stale.
Yeah,
and then they're going to stick with it for Andor season 2, but maybe they'll find a way to freshen up that awful intro with those helmets. Terrible. So that's what's going on with the cost of Andor streaming. But also it's been revealed this week, again, another Forbes article, this one by Caroline Reed, who says the Disney Star Wars movie that shattered spending records is Star Wars The Force Awakens, higher than previously thought, as a detailed analysis of the financial statements for its production company in the UK has revealed that Disney spent $639 million on The Force Awakens. And that makes it the most expensive movie in the history of films. Not the history of Star Wars, the history of filmmaking. The Force Awakens was just so massively expensive, with $25.8 million going to wages and salaries. And then there's Social Security costs on top of that, and administrative expenses. But they got back $103 million in tax credits from the UK as an incentive for filming there. So that brings it down to, after that, it comes to, oh, come on, you don't total that? We're on the air right now. I don't have time to look at a calculator. Forbes. Yeah. But yeah, they didn't quite, it must be here somewhere in the article.
Yeah. So the total cost of making the film, making it the most expensive movie of all time, almost $639 million.
Yeah.
And
minus the tax credit, it comes to $535.5 million.
Right. And the revenue from the studio, almost right there, $534 million.
That's a fat return. I mean, let's face it, the movie grossed $2.1 billion. And Disney got half of it back, it says.
Yeah,
with the remainder retained by theater chains.
Yeah.
So they made $1 billion on this, minus the $500,000 amount, the $500,000 of funds they dumped into the production of the thing, minus the tax credit and all of that.
Right.
So they made about $500 million on The Force Awakens, making it Disney's most lucrative Star Wars movie.
But the costs keep coming.
Solo lost $90 million. Solo lost $90 million.
$90 million. But the costs keep coming here for Force Awakens. So this is really interesting, where it has a chart of how each year there are still costs coming back to Disney for making The Force Awakens most recently in 2023. Although it's going to be too small to see, but let's see. We're talking about, well, the most expensive year was 2016, $242.4 million. So, you had pre-production in there in 2014, 2015. It comes out in 2016. But as recent as 2023, there were still expenses being thrown onto that side of the ledger. And according to this article, when all is said and done, there's a net loss on this. There's a net loss on this film.
On The Force Awakens.
On The Force Awakens, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Where's the net loss again?
The net loss is right here, $1.8 million.
Jeez.
So despite the
they
fact
lost $1 million.
So they lost almost $2 million.
Jeez.
$1.8 million. The point here is, despite these massive windfalls in terms of box office, like experience like no other, it was the number one movie the year that it came out. The Force Awakens, number one movie of all time, and yet, even with all the fancy accounting, that is the fancy accounting, folks. They don't want a profit. they want to say, they want to be able to say to the tax man, no, tax man, we lost money on that. Don't you see? Here it is. We lost $2 million on that film. Oh, geez. We're going to need some sort of.
Would it be more fun to
write it
make
off?
A profit? You know?
Well, they do, but it's just the way. Again, it's the way that they. I think it's the way they report it. So there's two takeaways from this. The most expensive movie of all time, upon its release, became the biggest box office champ of all time. And here we are 9 years later, we're still tallying up the costs, and they lost $2 million. Now, to a company like Disney, $2 million is nothing. But still, fascinating that there's a loss.
So, and this is why Bob Iger makes $46 million a year.
Is that what his salary is? $46 million?
Yeah, well, it has. I think last year, when he came back, it was a little less. It's like in the 30 million range now. But
Yeah.
I think he was peaking out at around 45 to 50 million a year.
Wow.
He's a non-creative. He's a suit. And, his most successful movie was the most expensive ever produced, and lost the company $2 million.
Right.
Yeah. And they begged him to come back. I mean, come on. What's going on here?
Yeah, no one can do it like you, Bob. And Jim, just to reiterate what you were saying, if people are asking, well, how do they know all these things? At least in the case of The Force Awakens, like Andor, it is the filing of these tax credits or filing for these tax credits in the UK that requires a certain amount of transparency in the accounting. And so that's why we know this. So 25% of the money that they spent in the country as they were filming The Force Awakens in the UK was refunded. So that's how these things work. Yeah. Because you're
right.
And look, I work in an industry that benefits from tax incentives. The point is, you bring in jobs, you attract these productions, you come in, you employ a bunch of people, and the theory is that you help create an economic storm in a good way that benefits everybody. Yeah. So that's the idea. But then you look at this and you're like, how in the world can you possibly have something like The Force Awakens and have it lose a couple $1 million? But that's the way it works.
Well, that's the film that's the film alone, because in merchandise alone, Star Wars generated $1 billion for Disney in merchandise. So,
and that doesn't go against the balance sheet of the film. That's a whole other budget, which is their merchandise. So, yeah, you could say that they lost $2 million creating a 2-hour commercial for all of the merch. And Jim, what did you say the merch haul was?
$1 billion.
$1 billion. So there you go. That's why they do it. You say, why do they do it? Well, and so that's why it's so important when you look at the way I think kids in particular are reacting to movies where, you know, they used to, when we were kids, Jim, because we would have to wait sometimes a couple of years to actually get it on home video. And that we remember a time when there really was no home video. So the only way that you got to relive your favorite movies was to read a comic book adaptation, to play with the action figures, you know, to watch the cartoon series if they made a cartoon series, to wear your PJs and your bed sheets. That was how you sort of relived it all. And now it's like, oh, I'll wait a few weeks and I'll watch it on TV. I was so excited for the Beetlejuice sequel. I was really looking forward to that. And it came out in the theaters, and I'm like, oh, I really want to go see that. I really want to go see that. And by the time I was about to go see it, I read that it was going to be available for streaming the following week. I go, oh, I'll wait. So what do we do?
Oh, yeah.
Gathered around the TV and last weekend and watched the Beetlejuice sequel, which I really enjoyed, and I recommend it. If you like the first Beetlejuice movie, you'll like this.
Oh.
If you're not a Beetlejuice fan,
nice.
you won't. But no, it was good. It was so much better than I thought. A worthy sequel, I thought.
As long as we're dropping out recommendations for things we're watching outside of Star Wars, I got to ask you.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Penguin yet?
No, it's in my queue. It's in my queue. I got to watch it. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Everybody I talk to says it's great. Everybody I talk to says it's great. So, yeah.
It even has Sopranos vibes to it, like the Sopranos in Gotham City, kind of.
Oh, wow.
Just certain elements of it, to me, have strong Sopranos vibes. One element in particular, which I think is fairly obvious, but I don't want to say anything about it in fear of spoiling anything, but very enjoyable. Yeah. The Penguin.
Rebel Force Radio.
Star Wars.
Hey, I want to throw something out here real quick. I had this pulled for last week, and we didn't get to it. But I saw this, and this was very surprising to me. Apparently, Nick Gillard, Jim, someone that you've worked with professionally.
I've trained with him.
You've trained with him. Nick Gillard, of course,
I did train with him.
You did.
Now, come on.
You did, absolutely. Great stunt coordinator and the fight choreographer for the prequels. Apparently, he was on a podcast called Chris and Company. And he said that the whole high ground moment, I have the high ground, he said, we all hated it. He said the Gillard and his crew hated it. Mm-hmm. It was Steven Spielberg's idea.
I think that's Spielberg's idea, that scene. I might be saying too much now, but I'm pretty sure it is. Just the way that George hung on to it. We hated it. It's common knowledge we hated it. We had a different version for it, which we felt was better. We campaigned as hard as we could to get it changed, but George was having none of it.
So the whole high ground, which is now a meme, you know, I mean, Ewan McGregor uses it and Hayden uses it when they go out in public. You know, it became a meme, but apparently that was not Nick Gillard's idea. It was Steven Spielberg's idea. It was probably revenge.
You know, I love it.
Indiana Jones.
I love the insight from Nick.
Yeah.
But I wish he took it a step further and explained exactly what that means. I have the high ground. Like, so it's over? I mean, I still am puzzled by that.
Well, I think that's why Gillard hated it. I think that's why Gillard hated it. Spielberg was pushing it and
Well, what's the rationale behind it when two Force users are in battle with each other? High ground means nothing to someone who is strong with the Force when you could reach out and choke someone without actually grabbing their neck. I mean, high ground means nothing.
Right.
You can throw your saber. And I do that an awful lot when I play Jedi Survivor. I chuck that saber at Darth Vader.
I wonder, okay, now we're going to break this one down, because I wonder if, allow me to try to find a way to sort of make sense of this. It may not be good sense, but what if it was some sort of like old-timey Jedi rule of engagement, rules of battle type thing? You know how at once upon a time, armies would face off against each other like gentlemen, and they would, point their muskets, and they'd all be lined up, one line across from the other, and, and then guerrilla warfare and things like that developed. So I wonder if it was this sort of checkmate type Jedi gentleman fighting, I don't know, tradition or something. It's over. I have the high ground. It seems kind of in that vein. But you're right. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you consider the power that these guys have.
I know.
And now all I want to see is Anakin force choking Obi-Wan saying, here's your high ground.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Just force choke the guy. Or, hey, Anakin, word to the wise, you're Sith now. Have you ever given that Force lightning a try? You could have done a bunch of things. You had lots of tools in the toolbox. And what did you do? The one move that proved Obi-Wan's point about the high ground. You walked right into it. It's like walking right into a wood chipper.
Yeah.
What are you, crazy?
Actually, it was a lot like going into the wood chipper.
So many other options. That's all I'm saying. You could have force pulled him. You could have done everything.
Yeah.
Everything you could have done. But instead, you just jump at him. Well, that's why they say the thing about the high ground is you can't just jump at someone.
Well, remember,
creative.
Anakin jumped at Dooku, and that didn't work out so good for him in episode 2. No, I'm taking him now. Right?
Okay. All right. Well,
so this is impetuous. He's impetuous.
Yeah. Rash,
yes. Anyway, so all these years later, see, we're still learning new things about the making of these movies. And sometimes it takes the passage of time before, little truth bombs like Nick Gillard saying, oh, we hated that. That's a terrible idea. George loved it.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. But, one thing for sure is that Revenge of the Sith was considerably cheaper than The Force Awakens to produce. And felt more epic to me, quite honestly. Felt way more epic to me.
Yeah.
There was a quality of the scale of The Force Awakens that felt kind of shrunk down following the grand establishing shots of the prequel trilogy, where you would just let your eyes dart all over the screen as George was setting up an establishing shot of Mos Espa or any of those environments. When do we ever feel that watching The Force Awakens?
Yeah.
When do we ever feel that broad sense of epicness? No, there's saber duels in the forest. That's fan film level stuff. Saber duels in a forest. Fan film level.
In a snowy forest?
Snow is not going to change my opinion. No, it's not. But I mean, just, you know what I mean? That epic vibe, looking at hundreds of Gungans, thousands of Gungans facing off against thousands of battle droids. We don't get that anywhere. We don't get the Geonosis Arena anywhere in the sequel trilogy. There are no epic moments like that. It's just shrunk down. Characters standing in a wheat field, I mean, it's just...
Yeah, it was, but it wasn't, I don't think it was trying to build on the expansive vision of the prequels as much as it was meant to be a continuation of the vibe of the original trilogy, which...
Well, there was plenty of big epic things in that as well.
Well, not on the lines of like Geonosis and
no, but the Battle of Hoth certainly felt big and expansive.
Battle of Hoth, yes, absolutely, it did. And I think that there's probably going to be people out there listening and saying, oh well, I mean, we kind of had the Battle of Hoth in Episode 8 when they were on, what was the planet with the red dust?
Crate.
On Crate, yeah. The Battle of Crate was very kind of Battle of Hoth. You had the speeders, you had the big AT-AT. It definitely tried to evoke it. But at the same time, what I will say is that the prequels proved that Star Wars can be just beyond epic. And I don't know why JJ wouldn't have continued that aesthetic, because George, with the prequels, whether they're canonically before or after, it doesn't matter. They were produced after, and George expanded the palette of telling a Star Wars story infinitely with the prequels over the originals, just the vision. And I've said it many times, Jim, when you and I were at Star Wars Celebration Chicago at that Phantom Menace anniversary panel, and they showed it on that massive screen, the clips from it, including like the Gungan battle, all that. You and I just looked at each other and then we just said, man, they don't make movies like this anymore. And they don't.
No.
Not
but
even
they
Star
make
Wars
way more expensive movies now, which,
right.
I mean, that's the vortex we're in. And the vision, the dollars are there, but the vision largely is not.
Well,
but I don't want to turn this into a whole, there goes RFR ripping on the sequel trilogy again. It's just, we're just talking about some subjective and objective facts here.
Right.
And
right.
I think it's worth our conversation if we're going to continue to go forward with this Disney thing, which they apparently are struggling with right now. So we're only here to offer suggestions, encouragement, and motivation.
And discussion. And if you thought Force Awakens losing $2 million was just outrageous or unthinkable, well, couldn't leave this one out. This is an interesting story here. Jim, I'm going to pull this up for our friends that are watching the video. So if you would tell them about this outrageous, unthinkable story.
Well, I should, because this comes from my home state of Illinois. And the Rockford Register-Star reports that history lovers saw sudden changes a month ago to the Illinois State Historical Society Facebook page. Its detailed Illinois history lessons were suddenly gone. In their place were essays, memes, and hot takes on the Star Wars movie franchise. A hacker had somehow seized control of the page, changed the name from Illinois State Historical Society to just Historical Society, and began populating it with content that had nothing to do with history and everything to do with a fictional battle in a galaxy far, far away between good and evil. All right. Who did this? One of you guys out there did this. And I want names. I want to know who's harassing the Illinois State Historical Society Facebook page and replacing its history of Illinois with Star Wars memes. Who did it? Jason has it up on the screen right now. I'm looking at a picture of Luke Skywalker in Darth Vader's helmet on the floor of the dark cave of Dagobah. And what else is there? Oh, there's a picture of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka petting a loth cat. I mean, this is real Illinois historical stuff. More memes. Here's a meme of Luke reaching out to raise the X-Wing out of the bog on Dagobah, and it says, admit it, at least one time in your life, you seriously tried to move an object using the Force. Well, yeah, of course, especially when that TV remote is on the other side of the room. Who hasn't tried using the Force to bring that to you? More memes, General Grievous. Fans would welcome a TV series based on the origin story of General Grievous. Well, I'm sure this is of great concern to the Friends of the Illinois Historical Society.
And, you could just, this is a bunch of just nice old ladies that barely know how to work Facebook, and they probably gave one of their grandkids the login because they were helping grandma keep it up to date. And
the next thing you know, there's pictures of Carrie Fisher wearing the metal bikini in a very provocative pose, I might add, on the former Facebook page for the Illinois State Historical Society. Executive director of the Historical Society said, we've had lots of friends who cared about Illinois history. And then all of a sudden, they were receiving these things about Star Wars, which is probably not a horrible hack if you're going to have a hack Furry said during a phone interview. We should have called Furry. I mean, the guy grew up with the name Furry. I'm sure this is not the first time he's been
Mr. Furry,
victim of a prank or whatever. Mr. Furry continues. It could be a lot worse than what it turned out to be. It's pretty innocuous and tame content. Nothing to call attention to. Oh, wait, nothing to call attention to all the unfactual history they could be posting up there instead. So he's thankful that the hackers aren't posting things like, Illinois is the birthplace of Nazis, or something like that,
Yeah, they're keeping it in the galaxy far, far away, which is great because no one's getting hurt that way.
Feeds of the Society's more than 7,000 followers were flooded with pronouncements like, Darth Vader would be invincible with Beskar armor. Shocking content. So there has been about they've started a new Facebook page.
Oh.
And so they've gone from 7,000 followers to 175.
Oh, they had 7,000. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
So, okay, now I'm starting to feel a little bad for the Historical Society.
So they're just trying to talk about Illinois history. I mean, what could be more compelling?
Look,
land of Lincoln,
So I think what these hackers ought to do is, kind of jokes over, hey, do a post that if you're here to see more, to learn more about the Illinois State Historical Society, click here and join their new Facebook group, ha ha ha. Because, I just imagine these people working for this historical society, having their little meetings, their little teas and little lunches, and then
teas. Well, it's hilarious. This is just terrible. Mr. Furry says, we've talked to Facebook, and there's just such a bureaucracy involved in trying to get Meta to do anything helpful. It's so much easier just to create a new page than it is to take one down. Oh, poor Furry. Poor Historical Society. They just want to make sure people who love Illinois history can find their new Facebook page.
Yeah,
that's what this is really all about.
Right.
Anyone searching for real history or wants to find out more about history, find them. It could be someone in Illinois, Colorado, or Coruscant. It doesn't matter where you are. Get a hold of, find their new page. Listen, I got to say this to the hackers, okay? How about a little promotion for RFR, huh? I'm not seeing any of that here. There's a lot of members of the Illinois Historical Society who would probably benefit from subscribing to Rebel Force Radio on their podcast provider of choice or checking us out on YouTube, Come on, guys, pick up the pace a little bit here. God, it's just meme after meme. Here's one with Natalie Portman looking at Hayden Christensen. Annie, my goodness, how you've grown. You're finally legal. I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
Oh, come on.
We're supposed to be talking about Abraham Lincoln and his stovepipe hat. This is all wrong. Yeah, more memes. Jason's getting lost in the memes.
I really
now.
am.
I'm trying to do a public service announcement here for the Illinois Historical Society's new Facebook page. So you got to check it out. Look for Illinois State Historical Society. And if you belong to the page formerly known as the Illinois State Historical Society, now just known as Historical Society, well, enjoy the memes because they're plentiful. I mean, there's so many. And I know one of you guys listening to this show is responsible for this hack. So you don't have to turn yourself in. You don't have to admit to anything. Just let us know you're hearing us talk by putting a plug on the page for Rebel Force Radio. That's all we ask. We'll
check back in a few days, and we'll see if the trap has been. The trap is now set.
Oh, it's a trap.
Been sprung.
No, it's a trap. Spring the trap.
Spring the trap.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So
well, let's check in with Star Wars and pop culture, shall we?
We shall.
All right.
Rebel Force Radio.
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parodies!
Star Wars parodies! Not always parodies. Sometimes they can be, appearances by Star Wars alum on various television programs and things like that. But it's when there's Star Wars references happening outside of the galaxy far, far away in our own universe.
Right. Sometimes in spaces you would not expect a Star Wars reference to happen. And Monty Python alum Eric Idle appeared on the NPR comedy news show Wait, Don't Tell Me recently. Speaking of Illinois, that show is recorded here in Chicago. And Wait, Don't Tell Me. Eric Idle tells a story about an all-night party he had with the cast of Empire Strikes Back while they were in London shooting the film. An all-nighter with the cast of Star Wars. So let's tune in to Wait, Don't Tell Me and hear from the legendary comedian Eric Idle from Monty Python.
Carrie Fisher rented my house in London for filming The Empire Strikes Back. And they were very depressed, and Harrison Ford, they'd been in England for a long time. They were depressed.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So I pulled out a special liquor we bought from Tunisia, and the party started, and by chance the Stones were around the corner in Abbey Road, and they all came round, and this party went on all night. And they were finally picked up by their cars at 6 o'clock, and we all went off to bed, and I'm happy to say I ruined one of the scenes in Star Wars.
You ruined. Do you know which scene you ruined and how you ruined it?
Well, because they stayed up all night. They blamed me. I mean, they're adults,
Right.
But so it was a scene where they meet Billy D. Williams, and they come off the plane, and they, Carrie says, hi, and they're all completely high. They've been up all night.
You can see, it's hello, what have we here? That whole scene. Harrison and Carrie were still riding the wave of Eric Idle's party with the Stones that went on all night.
Wow. It's all about being in the right place at the right time.
So, just think about that next time you watch Empire Strikes Back. Why, you slimy, no good, double
crossing.
What does he say? Why, you slimy, no good. Why am I spacing that line? You
we're high
wasted,
like them.
hungover, still stoned from the Eric Idle Rolling Stones party.
Well, remember,
Swindler.
Han says to Chewie, keep your eyes open, huh? Because he can't keep his eyes open.
Keep your bloodshot eyes open, Chewie.
Oh, man.
You said it, pal. My head's pounding, pal.
Well, they were.
So there's Eric Idle, the Stones, partying. Why can't I say party tonight? Partering.
Because you partied too much last night.
Maybe I partied too much. Yeah, drinking out of my mug, which reads what, Swank?
Yoda, best wife.
Yoda, best wife.
Little baby Yoda holding up one of his, looks like maybe some soup there or something. Yeah, one of his little soup containers. Oh, yeah. And there's a heart on the soup. That soup was made with love right there.
Well, yeah, I bought this mug for Wendy, and I end up using it. I had to. It was between this and Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I figured, well,
I'll go with you.
Let's not go there. I'll do Yoda, the best wife, and just get on with the partying. Huh. Why, you slimy, no good.
No good swindler. You got a lot of guts coming here after what you pulled.
No good, hungover. Still smelling of booze, swindler.
Well, I've heard you say it wrong so many times. I can't remember the line.
It's impossible.
Are you double crossing? No slimy, no good swindler.
Slimy, double crossing, no good swindler.
Yeah.
Why, you slimy, no good, double crossing swindler.
That's it.
Where's Puppet Lando when we need him?
In a box.
Such is life as a puppet.
That's right. Okay. Well, what else do we got here? That was a good one. What else we got?
That was a good one. Now, and also, I got to say, that was recommended to us by RFR listener Curtis. So thank you, Curtis. We have a suggestion from Brian from Utah, another loyal RFR listener, Brian from Utah, who says, I'm watching the Jessica Jones series on Disney Plus. I'm in season 1, episode 8. Jessica is walking with Kilgraves into a situation. Kilgraves has mind control powers, and he needs to get past some cops. Right. So Brian from Utah says, love the show. Thank you so much. And here's Jessica Jones with a Star Wars reference.
Whoa. What are you doing? We can go about our business. Move along.
Obi-Wan Kenobi?
But cooler.
But cooler. He sounded like Obi-Wan Kenobi, actually. The actor that did that little bit sounded like a Ewan McGregor type.
Yeah, right. But when you look at Ewan McGregor and you look at Kilgraves, do you really think Kilgraves has the permission to say he's cooler than Obi-Wan Kenobi?
No way.
I say no way, Jose.
No.
No way, Jose. Nice try, Kilgraves. Yeah. It's clear you're just trying to get into Jessica Jones' pants.
Yeah.
Because you're not cooler than Ewan McGregor or Sir Alec Guinness, for that matter.
Yeah, you do not have the high ground here, sir.
Back to the high ground. But thank you, Brian from Utah, for the Jessica Jones Star Wars reference. Now, here's a fun one. This comes from, RFR VIP, Ben Stein.
Hey.
Everyone loves Ben Stein. I haven't talked to Ben for a while. Ben says, here's a Star Wars and pop culture reference featuring John Boyega. On Amazon Prime, there's an excellent anthology film series called Small Axe by the British director Steve McQueen. It came out in 2020. So after his experience shooting the Star Wars films, he did this show called Small Axe with Steve McQueen. Short films. In one of the films called Red, White, and Blue, Boyega plays the role of Leroy Logan, son of Jamaican immigrants who decide to join the London Metro Police in the early 1980s after witnessing two officers assault his father. It was a complete surprise when Boyega's character sits down in his friend's apartment and a Star Wars reference happens. So here's Small Axe from 2020.
You want to hear something mad? Turn the music off for.
What?
I want to join the Force.
What? You gonna be a Jedi or something?
No. I want to join the police force.
Boy.
Now there it is. Okay.
There's some irony there that you've got Finn talking about wanting to join the Force. And he's rebuffed.
Yeah.
What?
Well, it's odd.
Yeah.
It's odd that there would be a Star Wars reference in his dialogue in a project he takes on pretty much immediately following the release of The Rise of Skywalker. And we all know that John Boyega has had a rather strained relationship with Star Wars. They must have had to pitch him on it or something. It must have stood out to him like a red flag when he was reading the script. And he sat down for this interview and revealed to IndieWire some information about the Star Wars reference in Small Axe. So let's hear from John Boyega.
I have to admit, took me out of it a little bit. But even though it made total sense that the Star Wars joke, the first time you read it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was on set like this. But my brain just works different sometimes. I was more like, is this a moment where like professional actors are supposed to come and say, oh, Steve, don't you think this is a bit too much? And then something in my brain said back, it's just like, nah, bruv, do you actually even care?
That's the other thing. Like, I started doing the math. I was like, God, it's 1983. Like, Return of the Jedi came out. It was like the biggest movie in the world. Like,
I was actually all right with it. Like, even Leroy kind of just dismissing that comment in the scene was quite natural because it was kind of like, okay, well, it's during the time. I actually quite like it. But then with the time and everything else, it actually seemed like a moment. I was like, oh, I didn't know everyone's gonna react like that, boy.
Well, that's what's so funny about it is that, it's like Finn was overlooked as a potential Jedi in the sequel films, and even in this universe, the cop is like trying to like throw him off, like, oh no, I'm going to distract you and not take you seriously about joining this force. So poor John Boyega.
Well, hats off to the IndieWire interviewer who asked him about that because he seemed kind of surprised that somebody was even asking him about it.
Yeah.
And he says, he said to himself, as an actor, I mean, do I really even care? This is a totally different thing. It matches up. Apparently, this episode of Small Axe was placed in 1983. So it would be the summer of Return of the Jedi. And the reference might be just like right on, considering the era. And so Boyega just gave into it, and he's like, oh, I'm cool with it. But he did think about it for a second. Am I, as a professional actor, supposed to just let this fly?
Yeah.
But then he just said, I don't, he's just more into the role itself than nitpicking the dialogue of the character. And so that's Small Axe. You can watch it on... Where does
Netflix.
Ben Stein tell us to see it? Amazon Prime.
Oh, Amazon. Wow.
Amazon Prime. So that's fun stuff. We have a reference from a show called The Killing, an American crime drama. The Killing. And it was sent to us by Matt from Canada. Matt sent in a few references, so thank you, Matt. This is Season 1, Episode 8 of The Killing. And a prequel trilogy versus original trilogy debate happens between a mother and her kids in this particular scene. That's all you need to know.
When I was your age, Star Wars was my favorite movie. The second one, Empire Strikes Back. No, Attack of the Clones. Okay, that is not the second movie. Empire Strikes Back is the second movie. Mm-mm. Yeah, I remember when Darth Vader said, I am your father. Okay, I was there, so no more of this second movie crap. Can I have another cheese sandwich? No.
Oh, the kid got cheated out of another cheese sandwich for merely stating his preference for the prequel trilogy or knowledge of the prequel trilogy. Mom put him in his place, and then no more cheese sandwich for Junior.
Have you ever noticed when people do the impression of the great, line, I am your father, they always give the father sort of a British accent. They always give it like a soft, I am your father. He doesn't say it like that. Jones does not. He gives it a nice hard R on that father. It's under because he's got such a deep voice, but he says, I am your father.
No. Can we hear her say it again? Is that okay? And just
when I was your age, Star Wars was my favorite movie. The second one, Empire Strikes Back. No, Attack of the Clones. Okay, that is not the second movie. Empire Strikes Back is the second movie. Mm-mm. Yeah, I remember when Darth Vader said, I am your father.
Oh, yeah,
okay, I was there, so
I guess I hear
Not
it.
just her. I'm not picking on that.
Can I have
actress.
another cheese sandwich? No.
Father.
No,
It's
no
other.
cheese sandwich, kid.
Yeah. Not till you recognize the real second movie is Empire Strikes Back. You'll eat nothing and like it.
If that kid had any balls, he would have said it. Clearly says episode 5 in the crawl. You're out of touch, Mom. You're out of touch.
Nice try.
But all the kid wanted was a cheese sandwich. And he played it all wrong. All wrong. Sad sack of a kid. So we have one more. This comes to us from Murph. Good old Murph. He says, here's a fun one from Good Morning Football on the NFL Network with host Kyle Brandt. The topic was favorite late career reunions.
Okay.
So how does this tie into Star Wars?
Good Morning Football. All right, let's find out.
There are 3 movies I've seen in the theater that have made me cry. They are Boys in the Hood, Rudy, and Star Wars The Force Awakens when I was an adult man. Harrison Ford reuniting with the Star Wars Empire was a massive deal for every fanboy, every quote-unquote nerd. There he is in the early 80s. That, of course, would be Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. But when he came back, and it was the J.J. Abrams thing, and there we go! He was back in the cockpit. Peter, this moment, I literally cried in the movie theater when he and Chewie walked back in the cockpit. And you know who was not emotional about it whatsoever? Harrison Ford. He's on with Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon's like, so like you're back in the cockpit, and when you walked into the Millennium Falcon, like did you get emotional? And he goes, I got paid. Oh my God. We love you, Harrison Ford. Never ever change. You don't give a damn about all the nostalgia, but this one to me, and it ended terribly in that movie for the character, but it's wonderful for all of us fans. I'll cry right now thinking about it. It's beautiful.
Wow.
Well, we got to have him
like
on RFR. He's got the enthusiasm and the passion and the tears.
Yeah. Kyle certainly seems like he's one of us.
Yeah, he does.
Good old Kyle Brandt, host of Good Morning Football on the NFL Network. So he cried seeing The Force Awakens. So it looks like that, $500 million that was spent on the film went to a good cause. It actually, elicited an emotional response from NFL Network host Kyle Brandt. So to me, that's worth it all.
Oh, sure.
That's worth every dollar spent on the budget is to get an emotional response from an NFL Network commentator. But you heard him bring up the reference to Harrison Ford appearing on the Jimmy Fallon show.
Yeah.
The Tonight Show, I guess you should call it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to vet this information.
Are you fact-checking? You fact-checking?
Yeah, I'm fact-checking.
Over at Good Morning
Kyle
Football?
Brandt. He made that reference to Harrison Ford, so I looked into the RFR archives and pulled up that interview, and let's just see if Kyle accurately reported what went down on that episode of The Tonight Show with Harrison Ford.
I like everyone else, I got chills when I saw you as Han Solo dressed up. I got chills in certain areas, and I was so excited, and I was thinking, what's it like for you, Harrison Ford? Here you are, Word nominated
to be an old man dressed up like Han Solo.
Yeah, exactly. No, did you get emotional when you put the wardrobe on?
No, I got paid.
Yeah.
All right. Good job, NFL Network host Kyle Brandt, for accurately, even down to the Jimmy Fallon impersonation.
Oh, it was brilliant.
With the stuttering and everything. It was a very accurate recollection of that moment from the Tonight Show that was, hold on to your hat, Swank, almost a decade ago. So can you believe it? Next year we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens.
I don't believe it.
Hard to believe, my friend.
But,
hard to believe.
It was a great time, and it's age and the passing of years creates wisdom. Thank goodness. Some of us give up our looks and our figures, but what we get back is perspective and wisdom, and that's something that I've learned to really appreciate with each passing year as a Star Wars fan in particular, because these things have a tendency to, Star Wars in general, ages very, very well, and it's fun to look back with all those great memories, and certainly the lead up to Force Awakens here on RFR, covering it from the moment of the sale, the acquisition of Disney, or of Lucasfilm by Disney, and all the way through the release of Force Awakens was some of the most exciting times to be a Star Wars fan or a Star Wars podcast.
Not to mention the role we played in the actual marketing of the film is stage hosts of Star Wars Celebration in 2015.
Yeah, no doubt.
Another thing that's really hard to believe happened almost a decade ago.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll feature some retrospectives to that time surrounding the release of The Force Awakens when we approach springtime next year.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
And we'll look back a little bit about at that and what's happened over the course of the last 10 years. And,
yeah.
Hey, when you said we get older, we give up our figures.
I said some of us. Of course, I did not mean me.
Okay, and you weren't talking about action figures, were you?
No.
I don't want to give those up.
No, not those figures. No. I'm talking about.
I don't want to give them up.
Our physicality.
I always have them around.
Yeah,
I always have stormtroopers. I always have action figures with me. If I have to give these up, it's going to be trouble. I'd rather give up my physical fitness than actually give up the action figures. And I've noticed many fans stand with me on that sort of approach. You know, I've noticed. I'm just trying to fit in.
We see you at the cons. We know.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, that's going to wrap things up for us here on Rebel Force Radio this week. Fun times. It's always good to get a nice dose of Star Wars and pop culture and an unthinkable, outrageous story. Love it. Love it. Great show. If you enjoyed it, there's more coming next week. Rebel Force Radio. We're here just about each and every single week. Talk about Star Wars with you. There's also, as we said earlier, a lot more RFR over on Patreon. Go over to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio and check out all of the options there for you to support the operation here at RFR, including benefits like full show video. So the podcast you're listening to right now, you could be watching. And there are some of you out there that you don't want to experience RFR any other way now. You all wait for the video, and I appreciate it. I like that, and we put some work into the video, and we hope you enjoy it. All those are available, and as Jim said, some of the exclusive shows like RPG and the Q&A and the Babu Freaks, those also have full show videos. So it doesn't matter whether you're listening in the car or watching on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, you can have it your way at Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. We're also, speaking of video, we have a lot of videos for free available over on YouTube. So just go to youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. All of our after shows are there. We have reviewed every single episode of every single Disney Plus series, every single Star Wars series going back to season 1 of the Clone Wars. And the majority of that all can be found on our YouTube channel, amongst other things. We've been doing this for a long time, so we got a lot of different classic interviews with Star Wars celebrities and all kinds of stuff over there on YouTube. So please subscribe, like, and comment today on our videos. We're also on all of the socials. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and over on X. And the official website for all things and everything Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. But the best way to help us out is to do what you're doing right now. That helps us more than you'll ever know. Keep listening and keep spreading the word to the Star Wars fans in your life that haven't listened to a Star Wars podcast, much less Rebel Force Radio. So please let them know about this podcast and how much you enjoy it. And we appreciate that very, very much. If your podcatcher of choice allows you to do so, we'd love to have you subscribe and we'd love to have you review. We read all of our reviews here. Just one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
And that'll be it. We'll see you next time here on RFR. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
Can I have another cheese sandwich?
No.